Hello, this is Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. In this video, we want to accomplish three things. First, we will get things configured so that we can get a boilerplate React application created and running. Next, we will walk through the first React lab, which is basically really just a cut and paste the code, and making sure that we can get the application to work. And then we will go through some of the code and discuss some of the concepts. So please keep in mind that you're not going to become proficient in React in the small amount of time that we have in this course to spend on this. So really the goal in this course related to React is just to get you familiar with how things work, understand some of the basic concepts, and be able to make some enhancements. So let's get started. So the first thing we want to do here, we want to download and install Node. So if we go to nodejs.org, you just go to basically the home page here. You have a download Node.js. Okay, just click on that button, and it will download it. And then just go ahead and click on that. And we're going to use the setup wizard. Click next. Accept the license agreement. Click next. And then wherever you want this to be installed on your PC, mine's going to be in the program files. Click next. And then we're going to go ahead and go next on this. I'm not going to install other tools. Hit next and click install. Click yes, pretty quick. One thing I should have mentioned, if for some reason you've got a command prompt up and running and Visual Source Code, you might as well close that before you install Node. If not, you can just close it, I guess, after the fact and reopen it. Because it is part of, it's embedded for Visual Source Code to be able to use it. And here we're just going to click finish. And I'm going to bring up now a command prompt. And then here I'm just going to type Node. And as you can see, it says welcome to Node version 20.16, which is the latest version. Okay, so we know we have that now. So the next thing we want to go ahead and do is open up Visual Source Code Editor. So let me open that up. And I already have a folder that I had created. So basically what you're going to want to do is create a folder in your repository, where you have it locally on your local machine, and just create a React folder under the JavaScript folder, and then you just want to go ahead and open that folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this. Then under here, go ahead and create a new folder, and you can call this whatever you really want, I guess. Create React Lab 1. And once you do that, so there's different ways you get to the terminal. You can go up here. We need to go to the terminal to run some commands. Now you can also run commands from here as well. Obviously, you would need to go to the correct directory structure to do that, and it would still blow it out into the folder there. But you can basically run all this just within Visual Source Code. So basically a couple different ways to do this within Visual Source Code. You can go to terminal and do new terminal. And as you can see, now one thing you got to watch when you do that, it's opening up this kind of to your root directory, which is React. If you do this, you'll have to go to the next, you'll have to go to the other directory like that. Okay. The other way is to right click on this and click open in integrated terminal. And you can see it's pointing to the correct folder there, right? So let's go back to our project, our lab. And so we've kind of done all this already. We're already verified the lab folder is one listed on the screen. So in this terminal, what we're wanting to do is run this command. And this is basically, this says this template needs to be a React template. And so we'll build this as a React application. There's other frameworks too that Vite also supports, and you would just have a different template. And also, you know, when you're working at a company, you may have a custom template that builds out a bunch of stuff that's specific to your company. So you would pass in a custom template. Okay. So there's different options there, but for our needs, we are just going to do this basic React template here, and we're just going to copy this, and we're going to go here and paste that. Well, I think I have an error here in this. So I had a couple extra hyphens there I need to get rid of. So here, then you go ahead and choose React, choose your framework, React. And then you want to go ahead and choose JavaScript. So we're choosing, when it's underlined, that's the one we're choosing. Okay. And now it tells you the other things you need to do. These are the same things that I basically have in the lab document there, but you can just go ahead and follow this from the screen here. CD to that. And then here you want to do the npm install. And what npm install is, this is the Node package manager. This is part of the Node distribution. And this will create a modules folder with all kinds of different helpful modules that's needed or available for you to use. Okay, so we're going to run this one here, right? And you will sometimes get some warnings in that. Found 0 vulnerabilities, so this is always good, right? And then, so we've already done that. And then basically after we did the install, we want to run, this will create a server and start the application. And so that's how quickly you can, you know, build a boilerplate React app. And so here, what you do here, you know, hit your control key and then click this, and we'll bring up. So this is your boilerplate React app. So we're going to kind of get rid of all of this. We're going to remove this stuff. This is kind of just comes by default. You know, like when I said earlier, using a template, if you pass it a custom template, you know, it would you could use things instead of what's here in the default, right? All right. So I think we'll go back here. So we've done that. We verified the development server is running, and the default React app is displayed. Also, there are some warning messages for the ESLint. And so I have here, you can basically delete the code in this CJS file. But really, all we really need is to add something. But I just figured it'd be easier for you just to, it would be easier for you just to remove it and then paste all of this in here than just this little bit. But basically here, all we really need to do on this is, I'll show you. So we have this here. We go down. Let me save that. That should be good. So we just need to end that. But, you can go ahead and actually, just get rid of this, everything in here and replace it with what's in that lab, what's in the document there, just to be safe. And basically, that's just to suppress some warning messages I'm getting. I need to actually research a little bit the cause of it. Even the warning messages that, it's displayed, it won't stop it from working. It's just, it's just some warning messages. And I'm going to look into that actually a little more and see. Something's different than it used to be in some of the later versions of React. So I need to look at that. So, okay, we've done that. And so let's get back to our lab. So we're going to organize our project structure, and we're going to create different components. So first thing we want to go ahead and do is create a file named todoform.jsx. And so I'm cutting and pasting. Always be careful when you're cutting and pasting, getting other things. I got a little period there. Maybe just get rid of that period just so it don't actually get picked up by you. So you really got to watch what you're cutting and pasting. So in here, we're going to create under the source directory, we're going to create a new folder called components. Okay. And then under components, we're going to create a new file called todoform.jsx. Okay. And then we're going to go back to our lab document. And we're going to grab all of this. And save that. Okay. And then we're going to do this to-do item. Let me get rid of that one too, just so you don't accidentally pick that up. And we're going to create a new that. And then lastly, I should have copied the code in there, but that's okay. Grab this one. Okay. So here's our list. Let's grab that. Okay, we got that one. And then we go to item and grab that, which was the one above. Okay. There we go. Let's cut those. Those three components. So then next we want to go ahead and put that one. I'm going to update our app.jsx. We're going to import this. Okay. Now this is this does Vite, I should say. Vite does a hot deploy in that. So sometimes, now it's complaining about something here, and I'll show you how you take care of that. Right now we're not going to worry about it. But I'll show you how we're going to correct these. And then what we want to do here is this app.css. We've got some CSS for the app. Okay. Get rid of all that there. Replace it with that. And what else do we have here? Okay, that's good. Yeah, so here, we're just going to make a little change here to do app. And we can kind of get rid of this. This is like the Vite thing. We don't really need that. I don't think I included that in the lab, but so that's that. And so it's still going to complain about something here. And I think it's really based on, yeah, these icons. So what we have to do is we're importing some icons, or well, we haven't imported it. That's the problem. We're using something that hasn't been imported, and that's kind of and that's why we're getting this. Our to-do list. Let's go look at here. So here are these icons we're using that haven't been imported yet. So basically what we have to do is import these. So when you have your server, your Vite, when you have your server running for Vite, you really can't put any commands in here, right? Because the server's basically running. So basically what you want to do here is we've got a PowerShell over here, and go to the PowerShell, right? And make sure it's pointing to the right folder here. And to import, we need to import these. We need to import the React icons. And so we do an npm, and I'll add this to lab. I guess I missed this step. npm install React icons. And now we have that. So we go back here to Node. Maybe what we'll do here is we can hit, so this is basically the running server. We hit Control-C, hit yes. And so now the server's not running. And we go back here and run this again. And there we go. And now if we click this, there we go. I think there's a couple things I may want to change here, but let's just see if this is working. And then you've got, you can use the checkbox to line through it, or you can delete it with the trash can. So I think that that's working. Need to work on the styling a little bit, put it in the center of the screen, make it a little nicer there. But it is up and running, and it is working. So that's that. I'll make sure I add that import. we probably can do that early on here. There's no reason we can't do this at the beginning. And where that goes, here I'll just kind of show you real quick. Where that goes is in here in the node modules. If we look under, there you go. You got React icons in here. It didn't have this before, but now you've got these React icons. So you can use them now. Okay. There's a whole bunch of different ones, but you have to make sure you import those. So that's up and running. Please let me know if you have any problems getting to this point. So what I want to kind of go ahead and do next is just kind of go through some of the basics of this code and what it's doing. I don't expect you to learn, understand all this stuff right away. You know, it's going to take some time to work with the React framework to really understand everything. But, you know, I just want to go over some basics and then you can go from there. Okay. So this will be used. You'll be using this a lot more in the Database Driven 1 course, which is the second year course in the AWD program at Rankin. So let's go ahead and look at some of the basics here in the code. So the app.jsx file. So this file here, which, you know, Veed has created, this file serves as the central component that pulls together various parts of the application. It defines the main layout, integrates child components, manages state, handles routing, and applies global styles. And it provides kind of the foundation for the rest of the application. So I want to point out some other things in this file as well. So this, you know, this is, like I said, created by Veed, and you probably, even though you could call this something different and everything else, it's probably best until you really learn React just to go ahead and use these names that are already supplied. If you do change the name, you're going to have to make sure that you have it changed everywhere. Okay. So in here, just kind of do a little quick view of this. So one thing to keep in mind as far as imports are concerned, you always have to import things that you're using. So in this case, if you come down here to line 7, you can see that we have our to-do list. And so if you don't import this, React's not going to know what this is. So what we're doing here is in our components directory, we have a to-do list and we're importing that. And by us doing this, this will render that to-do list right here within this div tag. Okay. And also we're importing the cascading style sheet. Another thing to keep in mind is whatever the name of the file is, you need to have the function the same name, and also when you have to export it, and that needs to be the same name as well. So the file name, the function name, and the export, having that all the same name, you can get away with not that always being the case, but it's, you know, just to avoid confusion for yourself, it's best just to do that. Okay. So let's go on and talk about the main.jsx file. So this one here, so what this file does is initializes and renders your React application. It serves as a starting point for the component tree, ensuring that your app component and its children are properly mounted and displayed in the browser. So here we're actually, as you can see, here's our app. And this app is what we defined in that app.jsx file. So whatever we defined, like I said, you could have this as a different name. I suggest you keep it the same way for now. That has to be here, all right? So as far as the imports here, so we're using a couple different React imports. Here's React, and we're using this for strict mode. And also we have React DOM because we're using that React DOM here. This basically creates a DOM element, right? It creates the root for rendering our application. Okay. And then yeah, and since we were bringing app in here, we also have to import app as well. Okay. I did want to point out prior, I think as of the most current version as of this video, I think it's like 18.3 or 18.3 or something. So prior to version 17 of React, you used to have to import React into every JSX file. So here you noticed we didn't do it here because actually you don't need to do it anymore unless you're accessing certain functionality. And in here we're accessing this strict mode, and for here you have to do an import. Okay. So them are two important parts of a React app. And then the next one would be the index.html file. And if we'll open that one up, and this basically contains the root element. You have to have this root element defined like that. And it contains that root element where the React application will be mounted. So this is where it will be mounted. And here you're using the path to the main.javascript extension file, the JSX file. Okay. So in here, you don't have much in here. So basically, when you mount this, it's actually rendering everything within the script tag. Okay. What else do I want to talk about here? I think the next thing is we'll just go ahead and look at some of our to-do components that we created. So our to-do list, this one here is basically the parent component of to-do form and to-do item. So to-do form and to-do item are child components of the to-do list. Okay, and here you're seeing that we're using this useState from React. And this is a very important concept, this useState. So state in React, state is, you can look at it as like a component's memory. It's a built-in object that holds information about the component, such as data it needs to display or values that can change over time. Let's think about it like this. Imagine you have an app that gives you a thumbs up or a thumbs down about a product, and you're tracking that number of ups and downs as a counter. Thumbs up counter and thumbs down counter. Well, the counter is displayed. The counter displayed in React is a state. So when you click a button for thumbs up or thumbs down, you're changing the state of the counter component. And so whenever that state changes, React automatically updates the component to reflect this new information. So some key points is, state is a JavaScript object. It stores data in key value pairs, just like any other object. State can change, so you can update the state using like the set functions. Like here we got set to dos, okay, and that will update the state. And then the state change. Whenever the state changes, it triggers re-rendering. When state updates, React automatically re-renders the component to reflect the changes. Okay. State is private. It belongs to the component and can only be directly accessed or modified within that component. Okay. So the to-do list component, it manages the to-dos state using useState. Okay. And here it defines different functions. It defines a add to do, a remove to do, and a complete to do functions to manage the list, right? To manage the list. It renders here. It will render the to do form component and passes the add to do function on the submit prop. Okay. It renders each to do item using the to do item component and passes the necessary props to manage individual to dos. So, please understand, it's going to take a while to learn, how to use React. And so, just try to just grab little pieces of information as you go along here and just, start building a little bit of foundation and you can build upon that. So here I did want to show you. So here's this use state. So this is by doing that, you're saving the state of the to-dos, right? By doing set to-dos. Now here, one thing you can tell. So here, since you've got two brackets here, you can tell that this is an array, right? And when you have an array, if you come down here, you got the spread operator. If you don't know what the spread operator does, it's a very beneficial, important in React. So you need to spend a little time looking at what the spread operator, how to use spread operators. But just by looking at this, you can tell that this is going to be an array, right? And it's defaulting this to an empty array. So if, let's just say what you do, if the set to dos was like a string or something, you would do something like this, right? You would set the default, because this is what you're doing. You're setting the default, and you're setting the default being just an empty string, right? Let's just say it was a number. If this was like a counter or something, then you would have a default of like 0, okay? So let's just go over a few of these lines. I know you're not going to understand. It's going to take a little while to understand some of this. But I want to go over a couple of these. So this set to-dos here, line 10. So this creates what this does is it creates a new array with a new to-do item, which is this first part here. You notice it's in brackets. This whole thing's in brackets. So it creates a new to-do item, a new array with the new to-do item at the beginning, followed by all existing to-dos. So here's all the existing to-dos. This updates the to-dos state to include the new item at the start of the list. And this approach leverages React state management to ensure the component re-renders with the updated list of to-dos. Okay. Let's look at this one here. And you're doing another set of to-dos. We got a filter in here. We've got some other code in here. So let's look at this here. So what this basically does, this is going to remove a specific to-do item. Right? Remove to do. This is going to remove a specific to do item from the to do state array by creating a new array that excludes the item with the given ID. So it's going to exclude this one with the specific ID, and all other ones will be in that updated array. And that updated array is set as the new state, okay? Ensuring that the component re-renders without the removed item. Okay, so just as a kind of a quick little review here, I don't want to go over too much here and confuse you. It's going to take some time. So just wanted to make sure whenever you create a component, you create your own component, make sure when you create a component, always start with a uppercase letter. And this is called Pascal case as opposed to camel case. So the first letter is going to be uppercase. And I'll always do your components with an uppercase letter at the beginning. And remember that when you create the function, you create the function with the same name as the file, and also make sure that you export the same name. Okay? And that's kind of consistent in all of these. Whatever your function name is the same name as the file and is the name same in the export. And then also you want to make sure that whenever you use something in your file, make sure that you did import it. Okay? It has to be imported before you can access it. And remember that in React, state is like a component's memory. It's a built-in object that holds information about the component. And then it can change over time, and React automatically updates the component to reflect this new information. Okay. So please let me know if you have any questions about creating the app. If you have any problems with anything, I can help you with that. And that's about all I have. So have a good day. Thank you.